So in this video, we're going to look at how to plot points in 2D. So in the XY plane. And in each of the coordinate pairs, the order of the coordinates matters. It's always written in the X direction first and then the Y direction. So we typically refer to these as a ordered pair XY, ordered because the order that they're expressed in matters, and a pair because in 2 dimensions you need 2 values. Okay, so let's consider the example, the point 3, 4. So this point is telling us that we want to plot the point 3 units in the X direction and 4 units in the Y direction. So I've created a grid of values that I've given us a window. Typically, these are described in terms of their ranges. So this is -7 to 7 in the X direction, and then -7 to 7 in the Y direction. Now, to plot this point, we start at the origin always, and then we count over 3 units in this case, since the first coordinate is a 3. We count over to the 3. This line is marking the line X equals 3. And then we count up from that point. The Y coordinate is 4, so we count up 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this blue line here is the line Y equals 4. Where those 2 lines cross is the location where our point 3, 4 is plotted. And you follow the same procedure regardless of the points. If you're plotting, let's say, in the negative direction, then if it's the first coordinate that's negative, then you go leftward by, in this case, 1 unit instead of rightward when the point is positive. So here we go over 1 to the left in the X direction. And then since the second coordinate is 5, we count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get the point -1, 5. If we are looking at the point -3, -2, again, the first coordinate is negative, so we start at the origin and we count over 1, 2, 3 leftward. And then because the second coordinate is also negative, we don't count up, we count downward. That's the -Y direction. So 1, 2 units to get to this point. The third point that we're going to look at is 4, -1. So that has a positive first coordinate, 1, 2, 3, 4 rightward, and then a negative Y component. We count downward by 1. So when the first component is positive, that means rightward. When the first component is negative, that means leftward. When the second component is positive, that means upward. When the second component is positive, that means downward. Now, we often refer to points in the plane by what quadrant they are in. We can think of our axes dividing up the plane into 4 pieces. The first quadrant is when all of the coordinates are positive. So from the origin, rightward and upward. In the second quadrant, we're going around counting counterclockwise. Everything in math is counterclockwise. So from the origin, we are going leftward and then upward. So the X coordinate is negative, the Y coordinate is positive. The third quadrant is going leftward and downward. So both coordinates are negative. And then in the fourth quadrant, we're going rightward, but then downward. So X positive, the first one is positive, the second one, Y, is negative. Now, if you're on the axes, you're technically not in either of the quadrants because these actually are defined in terms of positive and negative. And if one of the components is 0, then it's not defined. If one of the coordinates is 0, you're on the axes. And so if you go 0 in the Y direction, you're on the X axis. If you go 0 in the X direction, then you're on the Y axis. And again, we would just specify that those are on the axis and not in a quadrant. So examples would be like the 0.20. So the first coordinate is positive, we go over 2, but then we're not going up at all. And so we're here on the x-axis at the 0.20. If the first coordinate is 0, we're not going left or right at all. We're just, in this case, going down -5. So that's how you plot points in 2 dimensions.